Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Nerd Ledger. It's just me today. Um, you see, I just wanted to just talk a little bit, so I decided I'm gonna just record a little podcast. Um, so a couple things, right? Like, Chair and I, we did our top five worst things about the Hobbit movies podcast. That was the last one we did, and I was like, well, we can do more like top five lists. And you know, one of the ideas that came to mind was like top five characters that were made worse or done wrong by I don't know, for the Star Wars prequels. But the more I thought about it, the the more I don't think there are any. And I can kind of explain that a little bit. But before I do, um, you know, I I just want to say that after we did our list of things about the Hobbit movies that we really didn't like, I decided, well, I had this hankering to watch the Desolation of Smaug again because I remember when it came out, I really hated it, and I think I watched it once or twice after that, but I just didn't like it. And I was like, well, it has the scene with the dragons, or no, sorry, not the dragons, with the dragon with Smaug. It has the scene with Smaug, and it has the spiders and things like that, and I'll give it a go. So I had a tattoo appointment on Friday, and I was like, I'm gonna watch it during the tattoo, and it was more painful than the tattoo was. Holy, just like everything is such a waste of time in that movie, and all these weird like sex jokes as well, like that just don't make any sense in the context that they're in. All the stuff with Keeley and Tariel is just cringe. Like, honestly, I know I said like on my top five worst things list was Legolas, but he's actually one of the better parts of the movie. Like his action sequences are really good, but other than that, it's just so bad. All the stuff with Lake Town is just so excessive and unnecessary. The whole barrels down the river thing, other than like the cool fight sequences, is so kind of pointless. Even like when they first enter Mirkwood, it's all way too much. Most of the stuff with Beorn is too much. Like, it's all just so much excess, and it's just not good. And then by the time you finally get to the dragon, you're like kind of bored, or really bored. And it's like parts of it are good, and like as far as Smaug and Bilbo go, like parts of it are still like decent, but at that point it's hard to care about the movie. And right at like once they cut away from that scene a little bit, I just turned it off. Like, I think I had like 20 or 30 minutes left of the movie, and I just turned it off while getting tattooed because it was just painful, like, to watch. And just, it's so unfortunate and so upsetting because, I mean, the Hobbit, to me, right? Like, I mean, it's a completely different thing to the Lord of the Rings, as it should be, right? The Hobbit was written for children. Like, it was written as a children's story. The Lord of the Rings is completely different as a story, the way it's written and the way it's told. And so to me, they're nowhere near the same thing, but I still really like The Hobbit. And so just those movies were just such a massive disappointment, the way they handled it. And we had so much faith in Peter Jackson, but and to be honest, like, right, I saw the Lord of the Rings movies as a kid. I was, well, I don't know, 7 when I saw the first one at a midnight showing, 7 or 8. And, so, right, the next one came out the year after, and Return of the King came out the year after. So I was 8, 9, 10, those ages around when I had seen all the movies, and so I hadn't read all the books yet, and I hadn't even, you know, I read all the books after I'd watched all the movies. So for me, the movies were really incredible, but I'm sure people who were in their 20s and 30s at the time kind of could see some of the stuff with The Hobbit coming based on certain things that were done in the Lord of the Rings movies that they didn't necessarily approve of, or that Peter Jackson also overly embellished or spent way too much time on that didn't need it. But I think even then you'd be stretching to say that, well, we all saw it coming based on what he did with Lord of the Rings, because even though you have some people that were real upset about little things like Arwen replacing Glorfindel and stuff like that, like, most people do regard the Lord of the Rings films as, works of art, as masterpieces, as a masterclass in adaptation in some ways. But yeah, the Hobbit movies were just wow. Just so excessively bad. So there's that. Also, so on Friday, the the new iPhones came out, and obviously Apple doesn't just do the iPhones. A lot of times they'll have a launch of a new watch and a new this and that, and they also had new AirPod Pros this year. And I was like, oh, those are cool, like I'll get me some new headphones. The ones I have the Pro 2s. They're still good, but it's good to have like backups and just see, whatever. Just get some new headphones. And so I ordered them, and I selected like to pick them up, and so they give you like a pickup window. And so I went to go to the Apple store to pick them up at my pickup window, and there are like hundreds of people there. I was very shocked by that, like that people actually still line up for new phones, because the majority of them were there for new phones, and like you can buy a new iPhone through your wireless carrier and get it the same day and like not have to go to the Apple store. Why are all these people lining up to the Apple store? And maybe there's like something with jailbreaking or reselling, or I don't know, but like you can essentially get new phones for close to free these days through your cell phone carrier. So I don't understand why anybody's lining up for hours at the mall to buy a new phone. Luckily, like I was only waiting like 15-ish minutes, 20 minutes maybe to get my headphones because I had a pickup window. So, but a bunch of people have the same pickup window, which is another like just, I get it. Like they got to get as many people in and out as possible, but yeah, that was quite surprising to me. But yeah, so I had sent Cher an idea for another top 5 list of top 5 Star Wars characters that were made worse as a result of the prequel trilogies, right? So you look at your original trilogy and characters that were also in the prequels that now you kind of feel different about because of the prequels in a bad way, right? And the more I thought about it, the less I could think of one, right? Like the only one that like really came to mind a little bit was Boba Fett, but that's more because of the Clone Wars series. Like he just was a really annoying kid in that series to me. It didn't, strike me as the cool character he was in the original trilogy. So to me that didn't really count. But I had actually seen a comicbook.com article called 5 Star Wars Characters Almost Ruined by the Prequel Trilogy. And I just don't really agree with it. And I'll go through it and I'll tell you why. So the first one on their list is Emperor Palpatine. And they pretty much say like in the original trilogy, like Palpatine is this living embodiment of evil. He doesn't really like explain his motivations because he doesn't have to, because he's ruling the galaxy at that point. And yeah, like he's trying to just manipulate Luke to become his apprentice, ready to just get rid of Darth Vader, right? And so they say the prequels set out to explore Palpatine's rise to power, and for the most part, they do a fantastic job. Watching the politician manipulate the entire galaxy into secretly doing his bidding is bone-chilling. However, near the end of Revenge of the Sith, when Mace Windu defeats the Sith Lord in a lightsaber duel, all of the allure around Palpatine disappears as he needs Anakin Skywalker to rescue him. I think that's a misstatement or misunderstanding or misinterpretation of what was happening there. I don't think he needed Anakin to save him. He did all that on purpose to manipulate Anakin. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't ruin anything. It doesn't make any of the allure disappear, in my opinion. So, hard disagree. And I think it does also enhance his character, right? Like, it makes Palpatine more three-dimensional as a character. And I don't think it ruins him at all. The next one, Darth Vader. They talk about the original trilogy making Darth Vader the most iconic villain in movie history. Ruthless, conniving, and his breathing is enough to make any character wallow in fear. Of course, in Return of the Jedi, Vader turns over a new leaf, saving his son Luke by killing Palpatine. The entire story of the prequel trilogy focuses on Anakin's fall to the dark side, revealing how the Jedi, including Obi-Wan Kenobi, fail him. It's hard to root for Anakin, though, because he comes off like a whiny brat who takes everything for granted. The reality is that Star Wars The Clone Wars does more for his character than the prequels do, which is something you won't get many people who disagree with that. And I've said it for a long time, and a lot of other people have as well. The Clone Wars do a lot for Anakin's character. Like, his character and his story are told far better through the Clone Wars. However, the original or the prequels don't necessarily ruin Anakin. For some people, they do. For people who refuse to kind of like look past the surface, I think. But really, for the most part, like people who look at the prequels for what they are understand where Anakin's coming from. Yes, he's whiny, but you have to understand who he is and where he comes from. Luke is also quite whiny, right? Like, Anakin was born into slavery. He left his mom when he was 10 years old. The only family he's ever had is his mom. He left to go become a Jedi. And all he could ever think about is his mom, because obviously he was attached to her. Like, they you know, he was free, his mom wasn't. He's going through all this stuff, right? He's also 19 in Attack of the Clones, right? Where he's never really, like, experienced a normal growing up. So he's still quite emotionally immature, as most Jedi probably are, who aren't fully, like, you know, who haven't fully embraced the Jedi way. And that's something that Anakin struggles with. Like, all these little details matter to his story and how things go because of it. And so to say, well, he's just whiny and that kind of ruins the allure of Darth Vader. Well, I mean, Darth Vader was once a kid. Darth Vader was once a teenager, right? Like, it all comes together in Revenge of the Sith perfectly for most people, and you understand it and you go, that makes sense. And after all that, right, like, bam, he flips a switch, he turns it all off, he becomes that evil, conniving villain. So I don't agree with that either. Yoda, there could be an argument potentially for. I'll just read what they say. So they say, when Luke looks to continue his Jedi training in The Empire Strikes Back, he meets Yoda, a wise yet strange creature who calls the swamp planet Dagobah home. The trials that Yoda puts Luke through are tough, but it's clear that each one has a purpose, as the old Jedi has been around for centuries and learned all he can about the Force. In the prequels, Yoda tosses all of his wisdom out the window and plays into Palpatine's hands at every opportunity. The movies even have him pull out a lightsaber and go a few rounds with Count Dooku and Palpatine. While it's not surprising that Yoda knows how to use a lightsaber, the prequels would have been better off leaving his combat exploits to the imagination. Hard disagree, okay? Hard disagree. I thought their argument would be actually like more about the hubris of the Jedi led by Yoda kind of thing. Yoda frequently says in the prequels, that the future is impossible. Like it's hard to see. Everything's kind of clouded by the dark side. They don't know what's going on, and it's not so much. The Jedi do fail, but it's not so much they're failing, as it is Palpatine succeeding. Right, like so Palpatine is manipulating everyone at this time, and he's so great at it that he gets one over on Yoda, like, and Yoda versus Dooku at the end of Attack of the Clones is one of the best parts of Attack of the Clones, which isn't saying much. It's not a great film, but who is mad about Yoda, pulling out the lightsaber? That shit was badass. I remember seeing that shit in theaters when I was 8 years old, 2002, midnight showing. That shit was fucking cool, okay? So, yeah, don't agree. Chewbacca, I don't even know how you can say that. He barely shows up in Kashyyyk. And then they do put Boba Fett on their list. But Boba Fett also doesn't have much of a role in the prequels. Like, his role is fleshed out more in the Clone Wars, which makes him this annoying, bratty little kid. In the prequels, he's kind of just there. Like, he does what his dad says. He watches his dad die. He get his head chopped off right in front of him. And that's about it. Like, I don't know how you can say, like, I get it. And, the article is called 5 Star Wars characters that the prequels almost ruined, right? So they didn't ruin them, but they could have come close, right? I don't think so, though. I genuinely believe that the prequels enhance almost every character from the sequel or from the original trilogy. Like, you could argue there are characters in the sequels that were ruined. I mean, most people would say Luke. I don't know if I agree with that or not. I'd have to think about it a lot. But, the prequels themselves, sure, when they came out, a lot of people didn't like them, but they're still great. Okay, I don't care what anybody says. It's not just that they aged well necessarily. They did age well, in my opinion, but it's not just that. It's also that, a lot of people grew up with them, and now those people are adults, so we all say we loved them because we saw them as kids, which they are for kids. But also, like, we can step back and say, well, they're not great films, right? Other than maybe Revenge of the Sith. The other two aren't great. Like, when you objectively as films. But we love them. And they're Star Wars films. And, to me, growing up with Star Wars, there didn't need to be quote-unquote substance there. What Star Wars was, growing up, was cool. Star Wars is cool. Watching lightsaber battles and shit, that's cool. Seeing these designs, what's cool about Boba Fett other than the way he looks and the sound of his voice and that Darth Vader tells him not to disintegrate people? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's cool. I don't know. Like, the characters look cool. The settings look cool. Star Wars just was cool. And when The Phantom Menace came out, Darth Maul was fucking cool, right? Like, Qui-Gon Jinn was cool. Obi-Wan's fighting style was cool. Like, it's just cool, right? Like, and then, yeah, Attack of the Clones, Jango Fett, pretty cool. A lot of the other stuff happening, not as cool. But then you get to Genosha and the little bug people, not cool. But the battles there, all the Jedi showing up with their lightsabers, Mace Windu coming out, doing a flip off the balcony with his cloak on fire, that's fucking cool, okay? It's cool. Yoda coming out at the end, busting out his lightsaber skills, twirling around. It's fucking cool, okay? It's just cool. That's it. So, yeah, I don't think we can do this top 5 list because even though I recommended it to him, I couldn't think of any characters. So, when we do podcast again, it could be about Peacemaker. Peacemaker's going on right now. We're 4 or 5 episodes in or something like that. So depending if Chair watches those or not, we can talk about that. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is something we never talked about. It was great. Okay, if you haven't watched the animated Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, it is fantastico. Check it out. Superman is now streaming on HBO Max, so anybody interested in that, go watch it on HBO Max or rent it or buy it digital. I don't fucking know. If you're interested, it's out. So, yeah, I don't know what else. There was some news, some stuff about Marvel, some random things, some set images from the Star Wars movie featuring Ryan Gosling. There's been some news, nothing overly interesting. This year's just a slow year, kind of. Like, I mean, you can't really say that. We had Thunderbolts, we had Superman, we had Fantastic Four. The thing with Fantastic Four, too, I came to this conclusion, but it's not really that surprising. If you talk to people about Fantastic Four, there will be people who claim to love Fantastic Four. But it's never been mass appeal, really. Like, in comics, it was obviously popular in the 60s and 70s. But so was Spider-Man, and so was X-Men, and Fantastic Four was nowhere near as popular as those two. To this day, right? Like, Fantastic Four doesn't hold a candle to Spider-Man or X-Men. The Avengers are popular now because of what Disney and Marvel have done with them. But Fantastic Four never really got that kind of treatment. Like, Fantastic Four got the treatment of Fox making some not so great films. But I think people like the Fantastic Four's villains more than they like the Fantastic Four themselves. Doom, Galactus, things like that. But it's not surprising that the film, while it did well, it didn't do anywhere near what other films do, right? Like, you can't expect it to, though. You can't expect Fantastic Four to perform on the level of an event film like Avengers or on the level of Spider-Man, because everybody knows and loves Spider-Man. We've all yearned for a good Fantastic Four, but when I say we've all, I mean nerds who are fans of the comic books, because it's hard to get people to go see a movie they're not sure of, especially when you've been burned with Fantastic Four many, many times. So even though mentally, like, when you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, people love the Fantastic Four, they're popular characters. They're really not that popular. Like, they're popular, but they're not, like, they're not popular in the way that X-Men and Spider-Man are popular, and even the Avengers now, and even the Guardians of the Galaxy now, right? Like, if you ask people 20 years ago, Fantastic Four or Guardians of the Galaxy, they all say Fantastic Four. You ask them now, it's probably 70% of people would say Guardians of the Galaxy because of the films. So it just goes to show how things change over time and pop culture, and if you take some lesser known characters and make a great movie with them, they'll become more popular, right? Like, it is what it is. But overall, it's been, this back half of the year is, what is there really for comic book stuff to look forward to? Nothing. And I think Wonder Man might come out in December. I don't know. Daredevil, Born Again has already been confirmed to be renewed for a third season, even though the second season hasn't even come out yet. There's been set photos of John Bernthal, either on the special presentation thing or for Spider-Man, Brand New Day, which comes out in July of next year. So next year will be another pretty busy year. I mean, we got Spider-Man and Doomsday coming out, so that should be cool. Woman of Tomorrow also comes out next year. Man of Tomorrow, the sequel for Superman, which is going to be less of a Superman 2 and more of a movie just featuring Superman. But I think there's also Clayface coming out. There's been set photos from that. The Batman Part 2 won't come out for another few years. But yeah, there's stuff to look forward to. Just nothing this year anymore, really, unfortunately. So, yeah. Also next year, The Mandalorian and Grogu comes out, that movie. So hopefully that will be spectacular. So anyway, I think I've rambled enough. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna say thanks anybody and everybody who is listening, has listened, continues to listen. Much love. Make sure you're following or subscribed if you want to. You can also watch this podcast in video form on YouTube, or if you're watching on YouTube and you don't want to watch my ugly face, you can go over to a podcast platform such as Apple or Spotify, Google, whatever, and you can listen just audio there. You don't even have to watch. You don't even have to look at us. You can just you can just listen. So anyway, that's all. No more today. See you next time. Goodbye.